Last fall, I pulled almost 4 pounds of ginger out of a single 5-gallon fabric bag on my back fence. The year before, from the same size bag, same soil, same variety, I pulled about 1.25 pounds. Nothing changed except how I watered it. That's it. One adjustment and the harvest nearly tripled. If you've been growing ginger and feeling like you're doing everything right but still getting these tiny, fibrous little knobs at the end of the season, I want you to hear me out. Because I did things the wrong way for years. I'm going to walk you through the watering method I use now in 4 steps. And right at the end, I'll share the one thing I add to the watering can about once a month that Gloria swears by. I weighed both harvests on the same digital kitchen scale sitting on my counter, and the numbers honestly surprised even me. This past fall, 3 pounds, 14 ounces of fresh ginger from one bag. The year before that, 1 pound, 4 ounces. Same fabric 5-gallon bag hanging along my south fence, same Hawaiian variety I started from a grocery store rhizome, same mix of potting soil and worm castings I've been using for 3 seasons. The only thing that changed was the watering. Here's the thing. For years I watered my ginger the way most guides tell you to water ginger, a splash every other day to keep the soil evenly moist. That phrase, evenly moist, is what wrecked me. The soil stayed constantly damp. The rhizomes never had any reason to push or reach. And at the end of the season, I'd dump out the bag and find these sad little fibrous knobs about the size of my thumb. I'm going to walk you through the 4 watering phases I use now in order. This works whether you've got a row of bags along a backyard fence like I do, or one container on an apartment balcony like Gloria does up in San Francisco. And right at the end, I'll share the monthly addition Gloria swears by. The one thing she puts in her watering can that made a visible difference my very first season trying it. Step 1. The sprout phase. This covers the first 6 to 8 weeks after you plant your rhizome. Basically from the day you bury that knob with the bud pointing up until you've got a single green spear poking out of the soil. During this stretch, your ginger is not really a plant yet. It's a piece of stored carbohydrate sitting in damp dirt, slowly waking up. It does not need much water. It needs almost none, actually. Here's what I do. I water only when the top inch of soil is dry to the touch. Stick your finger in up to the first knuckle. If it comes out clean and dry, water. If you feel any moisture at all, walk away and check again tomorrow. In Sacramento heat, with a bag sitting in afternoon sun along a south fence that ends up being about once every 7 to 10 days. And when I do water, is about a ½ gallon. That's it. ½ gallon for a 5-gallon bag, poured slow at the center of the bag where the rhizome is buried. The failure mode here is the one that killed me my first year. I watered like I would water a tomato seedling, frequent little splashes to keep it happy. I lost 2 starts that way before I figured out what was happening. The rhizome was sitting in cold, wet soil with no shoots yet, and it just rotted from the inside out. By the time I dug one up to check, it was a slimy gray mess, a $1 lesson, not a tragedy, but a lesson. The success cue is simple. Somewhere around week 4 to week 6, you'll come out one morning and see a single green spear pushing up through the soil, pointed, almost like an asparagus tip. That's the plant telling you the rhizome is alive and the roots have set. Once you see that spear, you're done with phase 1. Step 2. Active growth. Once those shoots reach 8 to 12 inches tall, usually about 2 to 3 months in, your ginger is no longer a sleeping rhizome. It's a working plant with green leaves photosynthesizing and a root system that wants to push down and outward. Now you switch gears. Now you water deep and you water infrequent. Here's what I do. About 1 full gallon every 5 to 7 days, and I don't dump it. I pour it slowly at the base of the plant over the course of about 30 seconds so the water actually soaks in instead of running off the surface and out the bottom of the bag. If you've ever watered a dry potted plant and watched water shoot straight through and pour out the drainage, you know what I mean. Pour slow. Let it absorb. But before I water at all, I do one thing every single time. I grab the top of the bag with one hand and lift it. If the bag still feels heavy, meaning there's still water in there from last time, I put it back down and walk away. I'll check it again the next day. If it lifts easy, almost airy, that's the cue. That's when I water. The failure mode at this stage is watering on a schedule instead of by weight. Most folks pick a day. Tuesday is watering day, and they water every Tuesday whether the plant needs it or not. Some Tuesdays, it's been overcast and cool and the bag is still saturated from a week ago. You water anyway, and now the rhizome is sitting in soggy soil for 3 extra days. Multiply that by a season, and that's how you end up with tiny ginger. The success cue is the bag should feel noticeably lighter every time you come back to it. The leaves should look perky in the morning, and you should start seeing the shoots thicken slightly week over week. That's what active growth looks like when the watering is right. Now, if what I'm showing you here is making sense, and you've been growing ginger on a balcony or in one bag along a fence and feeling like the watering is only half the story, you're right, it is. The container setup, the soil mix, the rhizome prep itself, all of that matters too. I lay it all out in Chapter 5 of my book, The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. Chapter 5 is the Regrow Encyclopedia, and the ginger entry walks through the whole setup with line art diagrams, rhizome orientation, soil layering, the whole thing. The book is $17 at backyardbuddybooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. I'll wait right here. Take your time pulling that up. If you're on your phone or laptop already, the link is sitting in the description. All right, let's get back to it. Step 3, the mid-season pulse. This is the phase that did more work for me than anything else in this whole method. From roughly month 4 through month 6, for most of you that's the heat of summer into early fall, your ginger plant is past the establishment phase. The shoots are tall and full, and the rhizome underneath is starting to bulk. This is where you make or break the harvest. Here's what I do. I water deeply, a full gallon poured slow at the base, and then I let the bag genuinely dry out. Not just top-inch dry. I mean, dry until the fabric of the bag goes slack to the touch, like the soil inside is pulled away from the walls a little. Dry until you walk out in the late afternoon and notice the leaves just barely starting to droop. Not collapsed, not crispy, just a soft lean. That's the moment. Then I soak it hard, a full gallon plus, slow at the base, and walk away. This dry, wet pulse is the signal. The plant feels the soil get bone dry, decides resources are scarce, and pumps everything down into the rhizome as stored energy. Then you flood it again, and it bulks. Feast and wait. Feast and wait. That's actually Gloria's phrase. She's been doing this on her balcony in San Francisco for years, and that's what she calls it. Her 3-year-old ginger plant in a container by her kitchen window runs on exactly this rhythm. The failure mode is the one that took me 3 seasons to break. You see the leaves start to droop, you panic, and you run out with the watering can to rescue the plant before the pulse ever happens. I did this for years. The plant looked happy every day, and I pulled out tiny rhizomes every fall. The change happened the year I forgot. I was traveling, came home a week later than I planned, and found my ginger looking limp and a little sorry for itself. I soaked it hard, apologized to it, and forgot about it again. 2 weeks later, the shoots had visibly thickened at the base. That was the season I broke 3 pounds for the first time. Step 4, the late season taper. This is the final 3 to 4 weeks of the season, usually triggered when the foliage starts to yellow on its own. Here in Sacramento, Zone 9B, that's typically late October into early November. Up in cooler climates, it'll be earlier. You'll know when you see it, the lower leaves turning yellow and starting to brown at the tips. That is not the plant dying on you. That is the plant finishing. Here's what I do. I cut the water back hard. About a 1/4 gallon every 10 to 14 days. That's it. just enough to keep the soil from going completely powder dry, but nowhere near enough to push new growth. What you're doing is letting the rhizomes cure right there in the soil. The skin tightens, the flavor concentrates, and the storage life jumps from a couple of weeks to several months on a kitchen counter. The failure mode here is the most common one I see, and it's instinct. You see yellow leaves, you assume the plant is thirsty, you ramp the watering back up. Don't do it. That yellow is the plant doing exactly what it's supposed to do. If you keep it green and wet at this stage, you end up with watery, thin-skinned ginger that bruises if you look at it wrong and won't store on a counter for a week. The success cue is the end of the road. When the last leaves brown off completely, you dump the bag onto a tarp and you find dense, knobby, tight-skinned rhizomes packed in the soil like a handful of small fists. That's the harvest. That's the whole point. Now, I want to back up and name the 3 watering mistakes I see most often, because even with the 4 phases laid out, these are the places people slip. The first one is watering on a calendar instead of by weight. You set a reminder, you water every other day no matter what. And as nights cool in October, the bag doesn't dry out the way it did in August. The soil stays soaked, the rhizomes rot quietly at the bottom of the bag where you can't see it, and you don't find out until harvest day when you dump the bag, and half of it is mush. The fix is one motion. Lift the bag with one hand before every watering. If it's still heavy, walk away. Come back tomorrow. The second mistake is splashing the leaves instead of soaking the soil. A quick spray over the top feels like watering, but the leaves shed most of it. You get fungal spotting on the foliage, and almost nothing reaches the rhizome zone 4 to 6 inches down where it actually matters. Pour slowly at the base, right onto the soil, over about 30 seconds, so the water has time to soak in instead of running off the surface. The third mistake is the one I made for years myself. Continuing to water heavily once the foliage yellows. You see those yellow leaves, and your instinct is to rescue the plant. Don't. You end up with thin-skinned, watery, low-flavor ginger that won't store past a couple of weeks. When the leaves yellow, that's the signal. Taper to a 1/4 gallon every 2 weeks and let it cure right there in the bag, which brings me to the bonus. I told you at the start I'd share the one thing Gloria adds to her watering can about once a month that I'm now convinced is half the reason her balcony ginger looks the way it does. It's unsulfured blackstrap molasses. 1 tablespoon dissolved in 1 gallon of water. The unsulfured part matters. Sulfured molasses will hurt the soil microbes, which is the opposite of what you want. You stir it until it's fully dissolved, no clumps sitting at the bottom of the can, and you pour it at the soil base, never on the foliage. I do this once a month, and only during the active growth and mid-season pulse phases, roughly month 3 through month 6. I skip it during the sprout phase, and I skip it during the late-season taper. Once a month is the ceiling. More is not better. Here's the mechanism in plain language. The simple sugars in that molasses feed the beneficial bacteria and fungi living in the soil, and those microbes in turn unlock potassium and trace minerals into a form the plant can actually use. You're not feeding the plant directly. You're feeding what feeds the plant. Gloria calls it feeding the cooks under the soil. The first season I started doing this, I noticed visibly thicker shoots within about 3 weeks. That's it. 1 tablespoon, 1 gallon, once a month. It's the guide I wish I'd had 10 years ago when I was killing tomato plants in a Portland apartment thinking gardening required land and money I didn't have. If you've been told you can't grow real food without a yard, Chapter 9 of the 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol is where I'd point you next. It's called The Long Game, and it walks through Gloria's 20-year balcony system, including her 3-year-old ginger plant that's still producing, with a line art diagram of how she arranges her perennials for year-round harvest. That's what year 3 and year 4 of your bag can look like. The book is $17 at backyardbuddybooks.com. If you're watching on the TV, scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera. If you're on a phone or laptop, the link is right in the description. Go ahead and grab your phone now. Take a second to pull it up. I'll wait right here. So that's the watering rhythm that took my bag from 1.25 pounds to almost 4 pounds. Deep and infrequent, the mid-season pulse, the late-season taper, and a tablespoon of molasses once a month during active growth. Next on the channel, I'm putting together a video on harvesting and curing ginger so it actually keeps on your counter for 6 months instead of 3 weeks, which is the natural follow-up to this one. Drop a note in the comments and let me know which of the 4 phases you're sitting in right now. I read them all. Until next time, keep growing your own food, my friend.